Hello.
Hey everybody, tonight we're reading The Relatives Came. It always reminded us of all the times that we had family from Georgia coming to Louisiana.
It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Georgia. They left when their peaches were nearly ripe enough to pick, but not quite.
They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of Coke and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and up they came from Georgia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, even before the birds were awake.
They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost ripe peaches back at home. They thought about Georgia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them.
So they drank up all their Coke and they ate up all their crackers and they traveled all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard.
Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Georgia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours.
Then it was into the house and so much laughing and shiny faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get to the kitchen from the front door. Those relatives.
And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around, till we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in twos and threes through the house.
The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good, since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different, going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. Yep, that's just like we used to sleep.
The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find.
They ate up all our strawberries and melons, and they promised that we could eat up all their peanuts and peaches when we came to Georgia. I like this one with all the music they playing.
But none of us thought about Georgia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together.
Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests and headed back to Georgia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt way too big and too quiet, and we fell asleep.
And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their ripe peaches waiting at home in Georgia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us.
And when they finally reached Georgia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and they dreamed about next summer.
They come back again.
Love y'all.
Love you. Good night.
Good night.